Connor, for the last few weeks, everyone around the world were talking about one thing and one thing only. And it's not about Oscar nominations. We're gonna go to that in a few minutes. But this is about the interview. So, did you watch the interview? Did you, by any chance, were touched by the interview somehow?
Yes. At first, I thought you were talking about the Seth Rogen and the movie about North Korea.
Yeah, amazing movie anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean it had its moments. It got a little wild towards the end, but no, you're of course talking about Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah,
talking
Oprah.
to-
It's not Oprah Winfrey. It's Oprah.
It's just
Right.
Oprah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Cher. She's ditched the last name,
Yeah,
only
it's
known by
just-
one name now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I was just looking at it and kind of looking what's going on in the media, because I don't want to be kind of talking about what what they said, was it true, how do I feel about it. That's a completely different story. But it was a big event. Like the moment it dropped in the US and things started coming out, everyone was like, all the magazines were writing just about that. So, we could have had a third world war breaking out. No one would care. Everyone was just talking about what Meghan said, what Harry said to Oprah. Like, what is going on? And then the interview aired in the UK, which we were a little bit behind to watch it. It was actually interesting to see it, but more interesting for me to read the aftermath of and you can see how media reacted. So when you read, the behavior of that person, I'm not going to mention that, but that person is acting and definitely is not true. But then you open a different media and they say, oh, it's so moving. That story is so heartbreaking. And I would read media from the UK, from the US, and even from Poland. And the reactions there were completely different. So what I learned is people in the UK are still fine with the monarchy, with the royal family. That's according to one of the sources in the UK. When I read an article in Poland, they were saying, "Oh, the sympathy for the royal family is going down." So where is the truth? Who's controlling the truth? Like, we can watch an event, everyone's going to have a different opinion about it, how we feel about it, but then the media is going to try to push us towards something. And you probably noticed, some more conservative media will be launching an attack on Meghan and Harry for what they said, how they said it, and they will be analyzing everything. More kind of maybe people who don't really like royal family, or maybe don't live in this country, they would be much more cooled down in terms of attacking them, and they would be talking about, oh, maybe there is actually some racist people in there, maybe they were mistreated. And this media, this narration just reminded me, because you've not watched the Crown at all, right?
No.
And that reaction, what was happening, it just takes me back to what was happening in this TV show, which is based on a true story, but it's a complete fabrication of what might have happened, what kind of might happen. And I was just sitting there and thinking, people who write The Crown, they are just probably just doing this.
Oh
my God, don't we have a season finale of whatever the Crown season that's gonna be, this interview, and that's gonna be a massive thing, because this is essentially something that probably they could have come up with. And maybe because Meghan and Harry have a contract with Netflix right now, maybe they just providing content for Netflix doing that.
What if they just play themselves? I mean, Meghan's an actress, right?
Well, and apparently she's a great actress. Yeah,
have her play herself, right? It's so easy. The circle's complete, and we're getting that Netflix paycheck. For both providing, you get a writer's credit on there, you get a producer credit, and you get acting credit all at the same time. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Combo.
Were you did you see that? Did you see that that discussion, this different stories kind of breaking out from different sources and people trying to create a narrative? Were you affected by it at all, or?
I mean, yeah, it's hard. It was hard not to if you were on any form of social media. If you are on any form of social media, I find it really hard not to have come across it in some fashion. Everybody feels very particular about it, and there's something in particular about the fact that it aired so close to, or maybe just after, International Women's Day, and even what's becoming more commonly referred to as like Women's Month now, for the entire month of March. That you have this, as per usual, there's like two kind of categories of people. You have people who are kind of looking at it and saying this treatment is wrong and representative of treatment of women and people of color across many industries and institutions. And I did find when I was subjected to watching the interview, and subjected is the word that I would use here, that I did note that they kept referring to the extended family and on the royal family as the institution is all that they referred to them as, which was a really cold terminology to use. It's almost like content. They just kept saying the institution says this, or the institution did that, which felt like I was trying to be a little bit of a scapegoat for certain people or whatever, but that's another conversation altogether. I thought it was interesting that it was aired around this time, and you have one group of people being like, this is reflective of all of the stuff that we've been shouting for and campaigning for many, many years. And then on the flip side of it, you have the other group of people who are like, have been always like poo-pooing all of this, like, oh, everybody's too sensitive, and we have days honoring everybody and everyone, and what about White People Day or White History Month, and what about International Men's Day, and all that fucking shit that we're subjected to over and over and over again. So I thought that like the timing of this was so fascinating, particularly here in the UK, as we had a story of a missing person that was also building in the news at the same time, almost in parallel to this. So you had this sort of like trifecta of things all come along at the same time, and I think it just kind of created this perfect media storm that was then blown way out of proportion by more people. Like first of all, you had, what the fuck's he called?
Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan, thanks. That fucking imbecile, right? He was like, okay, I'm going to do a 30-minute rant on this to open up like Good Morning Britain, right? It's like, okay, who watches this show to begin with? I don't know, but apparently people do. And then you would think that, okay, that's the end of that. But now when I go on to read the news, I'm seeing like Sharon Osbourne is now being thrown into all of this because she defended him and is now not defending him. And that's like, oh my God.
It's blown out of proportion, right?
So pile of fucking
for me,
shit.
This is not something we should be discussing. And, I had this discussion with my girlfriend, and she is so pissed that everyone is talking about that. Like, who said that, whether that happened or not, that's a different story. But who said this, who said that? And come on, we should be talking about other things, not saying, about vaccinations, about COVID, but also about, people dying, about global warming. No, we are talking about two people having a chat on a, TV show. And this is the media, our media today. And that's just a little bit annoying, a little bit sad,
Yeah. I guess we're part of the problem now, right?
Here we are. We not listen.
Dedicated 9 minutes to this. Do you know the Streisand effect? Have you heard of the Streisand effect?
Tell me.
The Streisand effect came around in like the early 2000s, and I'm not entirely sure of the exact origins of it. But it is something to do with Barbara Streisand and her. There were photographs. Oh, okay. Yeah, there were photographs of her house in Malibu were taken. Big, huge house like on the cliffside in Malibu, like beautiful, beautiful residence. And something to the fact that these photographs were taken and published, and she attempted to suppress these images being published. She tried to have them, for privacy reasons or security reasons, I don't want pictures of my house being published all over the place, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
But in doing that, it drew more attention to these photographs of her house.
Yeah.
And this paradox came from that, known as the Streisand effect. And this, to me, feels like the Streisand effect, because like you have these two people, and they're like, they want privacy. They want to be left alone. They want the media to stop talking about them and trashing them and fucking trailing them through the mud and everything. So how do we do that? Oh, I know. Let's go and talk to Oprah, one of the biggest like chat show interviewers, like influential people of all time. Let's have a sit down conversation with Oprah, because that's bound to really like get people talking. In fact, it has the complete opposite effect, where all it does is draws more attention, more criticism, more voices, more anger. It gets the people who are already writing the shit about you that you want to stop to start writing more of it. They're getting more of it. They're getting more people on their side now. And it's like, come on, like, if you want stuff like this to stop, you just go away. You know, like, if you start going off and you're doing like human rights programs with Netflix or whatever it is that you want to do, eventually people won't care. It's not juicy enough content. I can't say that word anymore. It's not juicy enough material, right? That the Daily Mail are going to want to write about you in a headline or a front page article. You sit down with Oprah, though, to talk about how everybody's saying bad things about you. You better believe they're going to write like weeks worth of articles about you. Yeah. All right. It's like the Streisand effect. It's like, I get it. The treatment was terrible. Surprise, surprise. Nobody is really shocked that there may be racist members of the royal family. My mind was just blown. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And so, like, if you want it to go away, then you got to kind of take yourself out of the equation. It's the only way that it really works. And in fairness to them, they've attempted to do that. They've moved away from England and they've went away to Canada or wherever it was. And they've tried to take themselves out of the situation, but it's like, okay, so then why are we having this interview with Oprah? What are we trying to gain here? Are you trying to tell your story? If you want to tell your story, you got to be prepared for the fire that's going to come with it. You're not going to come out and tell Oprah your story and then have everybody go, do you know what? Actually, we're sorry for all the racist things that we said about you. They're going to go, okay, time to sharpen my knife. I've got more horrible things that I want to say. That's how this is going to go. It just is. And like, you know, so yeah, I was just so over, like, I seen it all happening the night that it aired in the US. It's, you know, the stuff starting to trickle out. And I was like, oh, here we go. And then sure enough, the proceeded to follow was 2 weeks worth of fucking shit. Yeah, so that is, that's what it is. Let's kind of forget about it. Let's go to proper business, which is movies. Cue the music, Connor. Do we have music? We do have music. Oh, yeah. It's not me that cues it, though. It's you that cues it. Just press the button. Just put the record needle down on top of it now. Here we go. It starts now.
You ready? I was born ready.
Hello and welcome to TheBlockBusters, a podcast about the wonderful world of cinema and TV. This is a podcast about movies and shows we love, no matter how big, no matter how small. My name is Rado. I'm here with Connor, and we're going to be talking about some news. We're going to be reviewing some films, and we're going to try to keep you entertained for another hour or so. If you have joined us already, thank you for listening. Subscribe, rate, and comment on our show. Please also let your friends know that we have a show. Let your enemies know. They all deserve to listen a little bit of us. Today, what we're going to be talking about is some news with some nominations for awards. We're going to be talking about some awards that were given. And we're going to be reviewing some films. Actually, we have one film to review and one TV show, big TV show. And that's finished, and Connor is really, really sad that actually has finished, and he's looking forward for the next one. At the very, very end of the program, we have Pick of the Week, so something we not be reviewing, maybe one of us only seen it, and we're gonna try to sell it to the other person. So just a quick reminder, All of our episodes are available on TheBlockBusters.net. This is a beautiful website that Conor has put together. You can find all the links there to our Twitter account, which is @BlockbustersPod, or @RDefaulta, and @DesignConor, and that's where our accounts exist. Also, we are on Letterboxd. This is where we put the rating to movies that we review together. You find us on Letterboxd at TheBlockBusters. Our theme music is by Scott Holmes, and you can find more of his work at scottholmesmusic.com. Artwork was created by Conor, and I have edited this episode if everything went well. I'm not sure because we're talking about the future. So if the future, Rado, edit this episode well. Thanks, Rado. So find us on Apple Podcast, and this is probably where you can just give us a rating and write something nice about it. But also you can listen to on Overcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you can find your podcasts. So I put some news here in our show notes, Conor, and at the beginning I was very worried because we only had like one news. And by today we have like so much stuff that happened. Big announcement happened for us. Was it yesterday? So we're recording this on Tuesday. I think yesterday that we saw the nominations, nominations for the 93rd Academy Awards that will be held in April. Conor, 25th of April. Normally we are done and dusted with Oscars. This year is just crazy. We have another month and a bit to wait until we know who's the winner of the Oscars. And before we go in and dive into the categories, do you have any kind of surprises here and there, or what was your reaction to the nominations?
Nothing. I think nothing surprised me. I was quite pleased with the diversity that we've seen on there, and I know it's something we're going to talk about in a little bit, but it seemed like a really diverse list of nominees across the board, which is really nice to see. Still a lot of work to be done, but certainly a lot better than what we've seen in previous years for everything from people of color to women, and even like for me personally, seeing Chloe Zhao get 4 nominations, I think.
Yeah, perfect. Right? Have you seen her movie? Actually, have you seen?
No,
any
I
of her
can't see
movies?
it. No.
But have you seen her previous film, The Rider?
No.
You should watch it. Like, there is so much hype about Chloe Zhao because she's made the next MCU film. It's called...
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah,
The Eternals.
What's it called? The Eternals, yeah. But no one's talking about, like, she made a fantastic film called Rider, or The Rider. And that is, like, it's one of the films that actually kind of moved me so much. And she also made Nomadland, which last year premiered in Venice. And it's a fantastic piece of work. But everyone's kind of talking about her because it builds up to something big and MCU kind of... But she's a great director without that. I would say 2 things. There are some surprises here, but I'll tell you that when we be diving into the details. But I want to start from the main category. That's I'm always interested in: international feature film. And this is the category I love. I don't care about other ones. We don't have a Polish film this year, but as expected, another round is in this category. From Denmark, we have Better Days from Hong Kong, a Collective. This is interesting choice. This is a documentary from Romania. I've watched it in 2019 in Venice, and I think it was one of the best movies I've seen. And back then, I've not expected this movie to float up to be here, in 2021 nominated. But I think it's a great choice. I mean, there was so many interesting films in the mix for international feature film. And The Man Who Sold His Skin was premiered in Venice last year. Not a great film, but the next one, which is Quo Vadis Aida, which is also right now available to watch on Curzon, and it's incredible movie. So there are two strong contenders here, Another Round and Quo Vadis, Aida, and I think the Black Horse is the collective. Well, we'll see. Okay, let's stop joking around and let's maybe see the proper categories here. So nominations for the Best Picture: The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and the Trial of Chicago 7. Boo. That was essentially, my girlfriend made that sound when they were actually reading out the nominations. Believe me, that's what was happening in my flat.
I don't think it should be there either. I did like that movie, as we know, but I also don't think I would put it in this category either.
It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a first. When I look at this category first time, I've probably seen everything except for Minari. So I managed to actually see both The Father, Nomadland, and Judas and the Black Messiah. So a very interesting category, to be honest, here. And before the nominations, I would probably say Nomadland is a winner here, but I'm not so sure anymore. And I've especially when Minari gets such a great press, it might be that.
I think it's going to be Mank.
Nah.
Not because I think Mank should win. Again,
he's not going to win. Nah, absolutely.
It's one of them movies where it's like, it's about Hollywood. It's about the glitz and the glamour.
We passed that. No, we passed that. They won't award that film. If they do, I'll be really bad.
I will not be shocked. That's
So what about actor in the leading role? So we have good chance for Chadwick Boseman here to win for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Also, Riz Ahmed, we discussed his role in Sound of Metal, really good. We talked about Gary Oldman in Mank. Anthony Hopkins, I've seen this performance. It is a towering performance, actually. And we've not seen Stephen Yeun in Minari, as the film is not available yet in the UK.
Quite wild for me, too, as someone who watched many, many seasons of The Walking Dead. For Stephen Yeun to be like an Oscar nominated for Best Actor, kind of it. Not like he was absolutely fine in that show, so he was, but it was that caliber of show where most of the people on it, you're like, this is kind of, for most of you, this is going to be as high as it ever really goes. Not you know what I mean? Like it's going to take something really special. When you're on a show like that for 8 years or 9 years, it's kind of like, right? Like, you're fantastic at what you do, but you're kind of, this is your level. It's kind of like the two guys from Supernatural, which has been like going on for 20 years. What are those guys going to do when that show wraps up? I think it maybe just wrapped up. Like, come on, like, why would you commit to something for so long? But anyway, it's cool. I really liked him as Glenn in The Walking Dead, so I think it's really fantastic to see him here. And the movie sounds brilliant. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm really looking
forward to see it. And when we look at the actresses in the leading role, we have another performance from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which is Viola Davis. We have Andra Day as Billie Holiday, Vanessa Kirby in Pieces of a Woman, Frances McDormand is not a surprise, and Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman, which I hope Carey Mulligan is going to be this black horse driving this, and hopefully she gets something. But I think Frances McDormand is such a strong performance in this category. But I wanted to kind of for you to notice this, that so we have Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and actress in the leading role and actor in the leading role are both nominated. So it looks like we have two leads in that film. So both the character played by Viola and by Chadwick seems like they are leads. Now, if you look in the actor in supporting role, it looks like Judas and the Black Messiah has two supporting actors,
what's up
but
with that?
No one has a lead. So who's the lead in the Judas and the Black Messiah?
I thought there was I seen that Daniel Kaluuya was for Best Supporting Role, and I was like, because I haven't seen that movie yet, and I was like, is there another character there who is the lead? But I was like, from all the trailers, like there was nobody else in that movie. And
so I've seen this film, and both Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield are exactly like, you can't really say who's the the lead, because this is Judas and the Black Messiah. So they both play like those kind of respective title roles, and they are crucial to the story. And we've seen the nominations for Daniel Kaluuya being like in a supporting role, and Lakeith kind of fighting for the lead role. But in this case, this does not make sense at all. Why those two actors who are definitely leads are not in a lead role? I don't get it. Conor, like, who can let's call the people who do those kind of awards and ask them. Hello? Hello? No, I don't have them on the line. But this is one of the weirdest things I've seen in a long time. So in the supporting role, both of those actors will be against Leslie Odom Jr., who's in One Night in Miami, he's fine. But again, there's 4 good actors in this film. We discussed this, right?
I'm actually surprised that it's him.
Yeah.
Of all of them, actually. Yeah.
Sacha Baron Cohen didn't get a nomination for Borat. He got the nomination for The Trial of Chicago 7, which is just like, okay, fine. But so the actor in supporting role here is just a big mess for me. They could not kind of nail down like who should be leading, who should be supporting. It's just crazy. At least in the actors in the supporting role, it's a little bit clearer. So both Amanda Seyfried, Glenn Close, Maria Bakalova, and Olivia Colman. I've not seen Minari, so I'm not going to say they are definitely like, okay, this is the supporting role, but the main role, the leading role is just a mess. Cool. Probably we could kind of go through those categories bit by bit. I wanted to highlight directing because we have first time in the history of Oscars two women nominated for directing, and this is Emerald Fennell for Promising Young Woman, fantastic film, and Nomadland, Chloe Zhao. So 2 directors actually, right? Yeah. With Asian background, Lee Isaac Chung and Chloe Zhao.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And we have in the mix Thomas Vinterberg from Denmark and David Fincher. So this is the interesting mix here. I do think I've got my money on Chloe Zhao here winning, but I would not be surprised if like the black horse gonna be Emerald Fennell. This is fantastic. Like this is a very young actress turned director with a very brave movie that gets so much recognition.
Both Emerald Fennell and Chloe Zhao are like in their 30s, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's fantastic to see in so many ways, because I mean, like, we've talked about it before briefly on here about like the Oscars and the BAFTAs and the Golden Globes and their sort of struggles with diversity, and the solution is not necessarily to just start and include more people for the awards of color or diverse backgrounds. It has to go deeper than that. It has to be them making and having access to making incredible movies before they can even get nominated for them. And I feel like you go back 10 years and nobody is giving Emerald Fennell a budget to make a movie like this. Mm-hmm. Like 10 years ago. Like this happens because this is the sort of thing that happens is because 10 years ago people start raising the question and saying, why aren't these people getting nominations? And someone goes, well, I can't get nominations because, well, there's nothing submitted here. And I go, why is there nothing submitted? Well, it's because they don't have access to making the stuff. They don't get the budgets. They don't get like even into the meeting rooms a lot of the time. So this is why you have these conversations. You don't have them so that it's fixed overnight. You have them so that like as time moves forward, you start to see these like young, talented people of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders, all across the spectrum getting more access to making amazing stuff that we want to sit down and watch, be it in a movie theater or in our TVs at home. But we get to watch it and we get to participate in it. And then they get to sort of get the fruits of their labor by being awarded with that incredible work that they did at a later stage. So, I think I was super, super happy to see it. And like the reason I'm so chuffed for the likes of Chloe Zhao is because it's not just that, like, I'm not excited just because she's getting or she's working on a Marvel movie, but that for me is part of it, in that, like, Marvel are doing cool things where they're giving these young, talented, diverse groups of people like the chance to be like, hey, like, there's a blockbuster here for you to make it. And sure, we have all of our ropes and stuff that we use and all of our controls and all of our barriers that you need to stay within, but we want you to make a movie for us, you know. And it's fantastic to see someone like Chloe Zhao, who is not only going to get to do a blockbuster movie like The Eternals, but is also being then rewarded for making movies that are personal and deep to her at the same time. In fact, technically beforehand, which is even better in a lot of ways. So I think it's super cool, and the same applies for Emerald Fennell. Like, we loved Promising Young Woman, and I can't wait to see where she goes from here and what she does from here as well.
Absolutely,
because that is a hard movie to make, and I think she crushed it. So
yeah. So we have most diverse Oscar nominations in history. Some things are changing. You know, we have people from different backgrounds. We also have the oldest actor in the lead role nominated, which is Anthony Hopkins at 83. Incredible. And if it wasn't for this hiccup with, you know, two lead actors in the supporting role, I probably would not say anything. So in the nominations, we have 10 nominations for Mank. How many you think Mank's gonna kind of get home out of 10? You know, if it was Titanic, we would be like, my God, it's gonna be a sweep. But it's probably gonna have one or two in those technical departments when there's like cinematography and cost and production design or something like that. We have 6 for The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Minari, Nomadland, Sound of Metal, and The Trial of Chicago 7. So it's like a big bunch of like good movies in there, and yeah, I'm super excited to see what's gonna happen, like who's gonna get what. And I think we said this, you know, awards are interesting because like they highlight people's names and films that maybe we've not seen, and it tells us, okay, this is a stamp of quality. And this year, as long as it's not The Trial of Chicago 7, I'm happy with the choices, you know?
Yeah, I think Minari for me is a great example of that, because had I have seen beforehand that Glenn from The Walking Dead, Stephen Young, was starring in, I would kind of be like, okay, in my mind, that's sort of like mid-tier, like Amazon Prime sort of movie, right? Like, probably pretty good, but not something I'm going to be absolutely busting to see. And yet, when you start to see that all of these people have deemed it worthy enough to put him in an actor for a leading role, is he in for? Yeah, he's in for Best Picture as well. So like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, well, that movie must have something really, really, really fantastic about it, because it wouldn't be here if otherwise. Right, you know, it just wouldn't be. So that's exactly, to me, it kind of, you know, what highlights the point that you're making, is that that's a movie that I otherwise may have skipped over, and yet this is adding that set layer of validation. It's like a stamp of validation, saying this is absolutely worth your time, even if it's not your most favorite thing in the world. It's worth your time. So that's really cool, and overall I was really happy with this list. And one final point on it is that, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we see The Irishman get nominated for a bunch of stuff and go home with very little?
Yeah, I don't feel. Yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
And are we going to see a repeat with that with Mank? Because Netflix was like, oh my God, look, we've got The Irishman, and we're here. And we're representing, you know, like the streaming world now with The Irishman. Look at all these nominations, and then it just went home mostly empty-handed, if not entirely so. And are we going to see the same with Mank?
I think so, because Mank for me is at the best kind of average movie, or average David Fincher movie, which is not good, but its technical qualities are
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
kind of winning it over. And obviously you have Gary Oldman. It's like, oh my God, Gary Oldman is another role. He plays a drunk. He's essentially just playing himself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and maybe, as I said earlier, like, I think Mank could win because it's like, oh, Hollywood, and kind of the way La La Land was. I loved La La Land, but it was sort of like, sometimes I think that when they make a movie about old Hollywood, Hollywood sort of fawn over it a little bit. They're like, oh, isn't it so romantic? Like, the old Hollywood is so beautiful. And this movie captures it, Mank captures it absolutely gorgeously in terms of what they're capturing on film is just stunning. But maybe the fact that it got all of these nominations because all of these people are like, oh, it's just such a love letter for Hollywood, and then maybe it doesn't actually win anything on the night because they're like, yeah, we'll nominate it, but there's other things here that were better than this one.
Connor, we'll find out on the 25th of April. Okay?
Yes,
let's wait
until
then. We were talking about the women and the representation. So I just found this article that my friend actually sent it to me on Variety, that every year they do statistics on how many kind of women work in the film industry. And the numbers are good for the directing. I mean, good when you look at it, when you compare it to previous years. So in 2020, there was women represented 16% of directors working on 100 highest grossing films, which is fine when you compare it to 2019, when it was like 12%, or 2018, when it was just like 4%. Yes. So it was a good year, and we didn't have, like you mentioned, there was no Eternals, there was no Black Widow coming out. So those films are still, this is this year we're hoping to see. But this is not. I mean, the change is coming, but we're far from like 50-50 representation. And that was International Women's Day like a week ago. And I think at some point we were even maybe discussing like whether we should do like a films like with like female representation. But let's maybe just kind of talk about female representation, not in front of the camera but behind the camera, because this is where the change needs to happen. And this is how much this is male driven environment. So majority of films, so 67% employed between 0 women to 4 in top behind the scenes role. In contrast, more than 70% of the top films employed 10 or more men as directors, writers, and other top positions. So you see there's still a lot of work to be done, and hopefully with the films like A Promising Young Woman, with Chloe Zhao films, with films directed by different women being noticed, like One Night in Miami, Regina King's, this change will come. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. Mm-hmm. Another big nominations we had last week was BAFTA nominations. And BAFTA nominations, wow, this is another of those awards that we have great choices for actors, big combinations of people, different colors and different backgrounds. And best film, very similar to what the Academy has actually chosen. So we have The Father, we have Nomadland, we have Trial of Chicago 7, and Promising Young Woman. But also in the mix there is The Mauritanian, which is Kevin MacDonald's film. It's a British production. I kind of understand why it's actually landed there. In the outstanding British film, Calm with Horses, The Dig, The Father, His House, Limbo, The Mauritanian, Mogul Mowgli, Promising Young Woman, Rocks, and Saint Maud. So we have a horror film in there, 2 actually, Saint Maud and His House, which is like surprising because normally those awards never go for films like comedies or horrors. They kind of stay in like a drama category. So that's exciting. Leading actress, leading actor, with this big mixture of people of different colors and different backgrounds. Fantastic. People from His House, actress from Rocks and Sound of Metal, White Tiger being nominated. Tahir Rahim is here. Chadwick Boseman is here. I think, what BAFTA is trying to do is just to be a little bit different, and they should go that way. Just do the things their way. Just show the representation, show how many incredible people we have. They not shied away of like in the director category, putting Jasmina Zbanic. She directed Quo Vadis Aida, a foreign director. They put here Sarah Gavron for Rocks. They put here Chloe Zhao and Shannon Murphy for Baby Thief. So if you have four directors, four female directors here. So, BAFTA's going even step further than the Oscars. And this is I think this is fantastic. We're talking about the change. This is not going to happen one day. This is not going to be like we're going to wake up when there's 50-50 representation. We need to get there, and that's fantastic. And you should watch some of those films, because those films are available to watch. His House is on Netflix. Rocks is on Netflix. Mogul Mowgli, I think it's on BBC or will be on BBC. Oh, sorry, you don't watch BBC anymore.
I don't watch BBC.
Yeah, and the Calmwood Horses you've seen, but so those films, most of those films from the list, outstanding British film or best film maybe not, but the outstanding British film you can watch right now on the streaming platform. So look them up, because Rocks, I would not be surprised if Rocks gonna steal many awards from the list.
We mentioned before, even with like you have far more women now, far more people of color in there. I think Viola Davis is now now holds the most nominations for a black female of all time. If Chloe Zhao wins all 4 awards on that night, you know who that puts her level with for winning 4 awards in one night?
Steven Spielberg?
No, Walt Disney, actually.
Who's that?
Who is that?
So we have BAFTAs and Oscars nominations out of the way, and we can talk very, very briefly on awards that were actually given. So these are the Critics' Choice Awards. When you compare them to the Golden Globes, much more credible, many more different journalists actually taking place and actually voting for films and people who star in films. Interestingly, Best Picture went to Nomadland, Best Actor went to Chadwick Boseman, Best Actress to Carey Mulligan for Promising Young Woman, Best Supporting Actor Daniel Kaluuya, and Best Supporting Actress to Maria Bakalova. Interestingly, we have Chloe Zhao as well winning for Best Director. Original Screenplay went to Emerald Fennell. And Chloe Zhao also got Best Adapted Screenplay. So I love those awards, because then you kind of have people who actually watch those movies, because most of the times critics watch films. Sometimes they fall asleep during the films. Not saying from that my personal experience at all. But within last year, they didn't go to film festivals. They got the screeners on the whatever, and they probably watched them instead of sleeping in a cinema during Cannes Film Festival, like some people do. Talking about Cannes Film Festival, I'm not sure if you heard that we might have Cannes this year. They already selected the jury president. That's going to be Spike Lee. So if everything goes well, and the Cannes Film Festival will come back to France in between July the 6th and 17th. We'll see how this is going to look like. So I remember last year people were still talking, this is going to happen. It hasn't happened. This year they already moved the dates from May to July due to safety concerns. So we'll see how this play out. And the last piece of news, and you kind of sent me this information, and I heard that in China, because there are no other films to be played, in China they decided to release Avatar, or re-release Avatar. So the margin between the best, highest grossing film of all time, this is before the inflation. So if it was after inflation, we would have the Gone with the Wind being this number one. But this is before the inflation, not adjusted for the inflation.
Yep.
The highest grossing film was Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
But Avatar was close. It used to be this number one film, and James Cameron is back on the top again. Woo! Oh, that look!
No,
you
we have
should
to
see this
start
look.
a
You should see this look.
No, we have to start a campaign to re-release Endgame in cinemas when when it's safe to do so. Of course, we're gonna do it. We're gonna have to get them to do it right before Black Widow comes out. Of course.
Yeah, so people are
So
kind of
people
up to
go back-
date. Yeah.
Yep, we can go watch it, and then we're gonna kick this fucking garbage movie back off the top. All right. I texted you too because I was like, part of me is like, this has become so like pointless because it just keeps being pushed ahead by re-releases. Because Endgame, if you remember, only actually made it to the top after it was re-released.
Yeah.
So
this
Endgame
is the game
was
that
re-released. Yeah, and it's like
this
they
is Disney playing
re-released
with like this. Disney is competing with themselves for the best film because right now they have Avatar and they have obviously all the Marvel films. So hey, maybe let's re-release Titanic. Maybe Titanic can get a little bit more money and just go there. I wouldn't mind watching Titanic again. I cried on this movie I was 17, but it's ages ago.
Could you name the top 5?
Yeah, I think I could. I could. So we have Avatar, we have Avengers Endgame, we have Titanic,
yeah,
and there's some other films there. Probably Infinity War.
Yeah.
And so I have 4 out of 5.
Yep.
Okay, number 5 is going to be Chloe Zhao's Eternals. No.
One can dream. It is in fact The Force Awakens.
Come on. Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, it had to be a Star Wars in there somewhere. Surprisingly, number 10 in that list, Black Panther. The number 10 grossing movie of all time. Age of Ultron, Furious 7, The Avengers, Jurassic World, Infinity War, Force Awakens, Titanic, and then it says here number 2, Avatar, and number 1, Endgame. So we're sticking with that list. It seems true. That's dated July 22nd, 2019. Seems accurate enough. Don't think we need to change the results there at all.
Oh god! Right, so this is all news. Do we have anything else we wanted to talk about? Or
No,
we spend enough time.
Not
Let's
enough
do a break for our sponsor. Did you bring any sponsors? I asked you to bring some sponsors.
Yeah, this episode of the Blockbusters is sponsored by the Blockbusters Letterboxd account. If you want to be part of the Blockbusters community, you can go ahead and follow us on the Blockbusters on our Letterboxd account, where you can
How do
check
I
in
go
on the
there?
reviews.
What's the link?
Just go to Letterboxd on your telephone of choice.
So
and
it's
type in
http colon / letterboxd.com/ and it's the
Should we spell it out phonetically, like just so people know as well? Like what's that? Lima, Echo, Tango, Echo.
Oh,
Romeo.
I got it.
Yeah.
Got it, Connor. Got it. The Letterboxd, yes, the Blockbusters. So yes, favorite films, Avengers.
Yeah.
Endgame.
That's the only one. I control this account. This is my account now, Rado. Yeah, so they sponsored us this week. Thanks very much to the sponsorship. That's what helps keep the lights on and the computers computing. And honestly, it's what pays for my dog food. Otherwise, she'd be gone, done for. Turned to dust. We would be eating her actually at this point. So we would be. But no, honestly though, if anyone does actually want to sponsor us, by all means, like
hit us on something.
Real hungry over here,
So on Letterboxd, just to clear up, we rate movies we discuss here. So last films we discussed were News of the World, The Dig, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I Care a Lot, and this week is gonna be Coming to America. Coming to America.
Yes, that was a really stupid name, so it is.
I think it's a stupid name when you read it, but it's a smart name when you see it written, because you have number 2 in there. So Coming to America is a long-awaited sequel. Was it really? did anyone wanted to see this sequel? No. So the sequel of the movie that was a big hit, massive hit in 1980s, and this was at the times when essentially you would switch on the TV, you would switch on the movie, and there was Eddie Murphy in there, and that was he was one of the biggest stars of the 80s. And this movie was released in 1988, was directed by John Landis, and I remember watching it. I loved Coming to America, and imagine it, when I asked my girlfriend, have you ever seen Coming to America? And she was like, nope. And we sat down yesterday and we watched it, and she laughed and laughed and laughed. And this movie is still incredible, and I really like that film. I'm not one of those people who I love this movie, is the best movie of all times, but I really like it. It's fresh, it's funny, it has, I think, enough balance between those stupid acts that Eddie Murphy started doing when he started dressing up as different characters. I think this is enough of there, and it's actually it's very funny. A lot of those jokes, the royal penis is clean, and so on, stayed with us for a very, very long time. And 2019, 2020, there was some rumors that they'll be coming to America, and Eddie Murphy's going to return, and we've seen this land in last few weeks on Amazon Prime. So the movie is available with Amazon Prime subscription. It's directed by Craig Brewer, who directed another film with Eddie Murphy last year. Was Dolomite Is My Name, and we have pretty much everyone coming back from the very, very, very first movie to repeat the roles of the original film. So our African monarch Akeem learns that he has a long lost son in the United States, and he must return to America to meet his unexpected heir and build a relationship with his son.
You must heed my words before I'm gone, my son. Now, you will be king. But the throne must pass to a male heir. Hakim, it appears you have a son who must be found.
Prepare the royal jet. We are going back to America.
Oh, hell no, Your Majesty. Come on!
So I want to ask you, Conor, what did you think about this film?
I was very, very excited for this movie. Actually, I had forgot that it was coming out, and then I started to see some of the promotional materials sort of in a week or two leading up to it. And when I went to Amazon Prime one evening, it looked like it was actually live for you to watch, but whenever you clicked into it, it was like, oh, coming on Friday or whatever, released on Friday. I am very torn on this movie. I don't know we haven't discussed this at all yet, so I actually don't know what you're thinking. That's the
beauty of it. That's why I wanted to hear your opinion.
I'm so torn on it. I still have not yet really made up my mind. On one hand, I was really happy to see certain elements of the original one back. I love the original one. It's so endearing. It's so funny. Like the barbershop guys, for example, was excellent. Having McDowell's back in there, excellent. Apparently Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to return as someone robbing McDowell's again, or to that extent, but there was scheduling. That would have been great, and he couldn't make it for scheduling conflicts, because he would have been there, no trouble. Yeah, so all of those sort of things, it was very endearing, and I thought that they dealt with them very well too. That how they kind of had progressed him, like McDowell's now kind of being sort of like a mentor to him in ways. It was a funny addition to it, or even towards the end where it cuts back and he's just mopping the floor again, was a very nice throwback.
Yeah.
I thought the almost unrecognizable Wesley Snipes I didn't recognize him
a
at
lot
the
of
start.
fun here. A lot of fun.
So good in this here. Like, he is just loving it. And I have to say, I think that's one of the best things about this movie is that it feels like it's very much in on its own joke. It's in on its own humor and not taking itself very seriously. And it's having fun with it. I feel like everybody's having that same level of fun. But a lot of the jokes don't really land. A lot of the stuff just isn't funny. And perhaps my biggest problem with it is that Eddie Murphy's son in it, Akeem's son, is just not that interesting of a character. Well, I really like Eddie Murphy in the first one, that sort of fish out of water sort of a vibe that he gives off, and he's so aloof to this like strange world that he's in. And on the flip side of it, his son in this movie just doesn't have that same. It's the same essential thing. He's a fish out of water. He's here, and it's completely different to, the life that he lives with Tracy Morgan as this kind of like crooked uncle in New York, and then he goes to what do they call the country in this here? It's fictional, isn't it?
Zamunda.
Yeah. Thank you. It just never has that same charm when he goes to Zamunda, as in like, oh, he's like a fish out of water and he doesn't understand how to act like a prince or something like that there. And I just didn't find him all that engaging that I cared about anything that was really happening with that. I think his daughters were a much more interesting,
absolutely,
sort of dynamic to work with here, and then they kind of
sidetracked them completely.
And it was sort of like I felt like this would have been way more interesting to have more conflict play out here between his daughters and Wesley Snipes' character. It's a fun movie. I did laugh at some of the jokes. Some of it is very endearing. Some of it very budget and cheap, like how the sort of sound stages are. I don't know if you knew that they filmed at the rapper Rick Ross. There's a rapper called Rick Ross, and I think he lives in Georgia, and he has a massive mansion. And they just let them film at his mansion. So much of it is filmed at Rick Ross's mansion, which is a fantastic like small side to the whole thing, like production sort of gem to it all, is that it was filmed at Rick Ross's house.
I didn't mind that feature. That didn't bother me, because the original film as well, I mean, it looked too lavish and rich, but you could see, people kind of like pulling from whatever they could to make this look as big as they could at that time. And it still didn't bother me with the sequel.
It wasn't so much that, it was some of the sequences like the outdoor stuff in the sort of like planes and whatnot that was very much like, you can tell that they were kind of like comped in on front of a screen. Some of that sort of looked kind of like cheapish to me and pulled me out of it sometimes.
The digital effects with the animals are not the same, because when you look at the original, they have real elephants over there, real giraffes, real animals in like few scenes, like for a couple of seconds, but it was enough to convince you, okay, we are in Africa. In this one, they shot in Georgia, somewhere in the backyard, and they just put like a digital elephant going there, and they put like a digital lion, and you're like, Jesus, no, this doesn't work.
The same goes with on the other side of that. Sorry, is the kind of like the costume design and a lot of the colors and stuff like that. I remember loving it in Black Panther, as they brought in a lot of that sort of like African culture, and it's just like the sequences where they're kind of having the ceremonial fight in Black Panther, and it's just like beautiful looking, like how much color is in that sequence, and the sort of like parties and stuff at the end of this, and the sort of dance sequences and the sort of silly stuff like that. But it's gorgeous design and like gorgeous costuming being folded in there, and so much of this movie I was like very disappointed by. I think it had heart. It had its heart in the right place. I just feel that its script could have been a lot tighter. And it maybe could have done with another pass through at some of the jokes that it was trying to land. overall as well, because while I did laugh at some of them, most of the things that I laughed at were the throwback stuff that we were seeing, is where I laughed at. Tracy Morgan was really good. Wesley Snipes was fantastic. But everything else was just sort of like, this wasn't good at all. This wasn't very enjoyable. What did you think?
Yeah, I think we're on the same page for very similar reasons. When the film mentions that in general, condition of American cinema isn't great, and whatever you have is just superhero movies and sequels to the films that no one really wanted. This is one of those films, and it's kind of on its own joke, like, oh, we are, kind of winking to you that this is probably better sequel, but maybe they are right. Maybe this is the sequel that kind of no one really needed to see. On one hand, it's fantastic to see those characters again, to see, the cast, they still having great fun, and you can see that. On the other, there's no idea in this film, and the biggest problem I had, this is a lazy film. This is a film that tries to repeat the original film. It doesn't even have that much of a suspense, it's not like you kind of like, oh, what's gonna happen? In the first 15 minutes, Eddie Murphy learns about his son. He goes to the US. It's not like he has to convince him somehow. They just come back with it. And it's just like, what's going on here? Like, there is no tension. There is no kind of surprise. There's no build up. The whole film, like the original Coming to America, was like the differences between like they had in when they went over there, and how different is that world, how different New York used to live, and now they bring them in, and they have obviously some different traditions, but kind of like there is no tension, like you see him in like 15 minutes learning everything and just becoming like, oh, he's gonna be a great prince or whatever. And it's kind of lazily going towards the same arc, but the arc is not earned, like you mentioned. I like the actor that plays his son, Jermaine Fowler. He's a good actor. He was fantastic in Sorry to Bother You, but here his arc almost doesn't exist. He has to actually make it up, and the relationship he creates at some point, it's just like, what? And I was really, really wanted to see more of the daughters of Akeem in the film. Like, they're just begging for like more time. Kiki Lane, so she plays Mika, the oldest daughter. She is just incredible. Kiki played in two incredible films. One was If Beale Street Could Talk, and the other one was The Old Guard. The Old Guard, right? So that film wasn't great, but she was really good in that film, and she should definitely get like a bigger role than just kind of walking around in Puma dress or Puma things, because everything is kind of branded in there. You have so many product placements in there, it hurts. Then just give her something to do, something more than just kind of brood around. So a little bit disappointed with it, but I had kind of good time watching this world. I love the dances, the songs when they kind of like start singing. I was just like, yeah, this is what I wanted to see. And Wesley Snipes is incredible in this film. For some reason, when in the original, when I loved the barbershop sequences, here they kind of felt like, okay, we ran out of jokes for them to say, because they come back again talking about boxers, and it's like, oh, it's so funny, it's like 30 years later they still keep talking about box. The boxers have changed, but it's just not as kind of engaging as it used to be. So it's a mixed bag. I mean, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just a lazy movie and not maybe necessary for everyone to watch. But if you're a big fan, you're gonna go there. I think the closer you're gonna watch it to the original, the bigger kind of differences you're gonna see. And that movie is not kind of so confident that it starts even showing you the footage from the original movie. And when they do that, I just hate it. I just hate when the sequel shows you the stuff from it. I've seen the original. You don't have to show me when they walk in the bar or when he talks to his dad or whatever. Like, this is a waste of time. And this only shows how the new movie isn't that great. But maybe I'm just being harsh. I kind of liked watching it. Again, not an essential viewing for me.
Do you think the sequences in it that were I never bothered to go look this up again, but the sequences where they had flashbacks to the original movie, but they weren't sequences from the original movie.
There are a few, obviously, with the moment when Arsenio organizes the woman for Prince.
Yeah.
So that wasn't there in the original movie. So you can see that the faces are a little bit kind of digitally restored, a little bit like.
You reckon that they blew a lot of their budget trying to like youthify Eddie Murphy and. Is it Arsenio?
He doesn't look that bad, to be honest, even today.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
But yes,
like,
yeah.
Not saying that, but like, did they had like, let's say we have like $20 million. It's going to cost like $7 million to do this, like
Yeah, 7 for the face, 3 for the elephant, and 2 million for the lion, right?
Yeah. Look, I think that this movie, I think this movie would have done a lot better, or been maybe turned out to be another little bit of a cult classic had it have came out in the sort of mid 2000s, because that's what it tonally felt like to me. It felt like a movie from the mid 2000s, early 2000s time period. The likes of Scary Movie and stuff like that. Like that's where this, in my mind, as I was watching it, I was like, this feels like a Scary Movie or an Anchorman or something like that we've seen.
More Anchorman, I would say, rather than a Scary Movie. Anchorman was kind of in love with the era. It was taking a piss, but it also was a homage. When Scary Movie films were just kind of like taking a piece of everything. But yeah, I agree, probably back in the days, maybe with a little bit better screenplay, more original one than just trying to completely riff on the original, or just don't try to hide it and just say, hey, we're just gonna be repeating the story here. So it might have worked better, but we have what we have. Some people will love it, some people will be kind of fine with it. I think I'm okay with it to exist, but yeah. What did you find?
$60 million was the budget for it. So
it's a big budget. 20
budget.
million for the faces, for then 20 million for the makeup for Arsenio and for Eddie, for them to play those roles again. Did you like the finale when what's the name of that singer appears and just starts singing? That's obviously Eddie Murphy. Is just like, oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know. It comes up at the end. The end of it to me was again that sort of ending part felt very like mid 2000s, particularly. Let's and in a similar way to how an Adam Sandler film very often feels like an Adam Sandler film, right? It has that sort of general feel about it. With the exception of Uncut Gems. I mean, the ones that like his production company kind of puts out, they all have that same feeling. You can tell there's beats there that are his humor. This very much felt like an Eddie Murphy movie. Even though we haven't seen very many of those in a long time, that dance sequence and the people, him dressed up as the different people and whatnot, it just was like, this feels like an Eddie Murphy movie. And I don't know, well, that's a good thing or a bad thing anymore. I don't know, but it just sort of felt like it. On Letterboxd, I would probably go with 2.5 stars.
Bang on.
Yeah.
I want to say 2.5 stars.
Yeah,
so this is 2.5 stars. We're locking it in on TheBlockBusters. That's where you can find us. Amazing. So one other thing to discuss is obviously WandaVision season finale. The title of that episode 9, is season finale. Is that correct?
Series finale?
Series finale? Yeah. Sounds similar. Almost exactly the same. So, series finale is the end of the WandaVision. And Conor cried when this finished. He texted me for 2 days saying, I can't get over it. It was the best thing I've ever experienced. I've watched it 7 times. So, why don't you tell me about WandaVision series finale?
You sound like you're prepping yourself. You're like, oh, here we go.
No. Absolutely, there is nothing you don't expect me to say. But why don't you tell me a little bit about this? Because we were talking about during the last episode, we were worried whether it's gonna stick the landing, because the build-up was really great, and I have to agree with you. We discussed that episode 8 was quite a good build-up. It was very emotional, had really strong performances in there, and explained pretty much everything, so nothing was kind of left out, and whatever was left for the series to do is just to bring it home. Did it bring it home, Connor?
Mostly, yes. Mostly.
Okay.
I think that, I think last time we said that there's a lot of like threads that they have to try and tie. There's a lot of stories kind of pile driving towards the end that they need to sort of wrap up in a satisfying way.
So we had to kind of make sure that the kids are safe, because at the very end we had kids in the hands of Agatha or Agatha Harkness, or is it the other way around? Right. Agnes or Agatha Harkness. We learned that there is we should talk about that. We're gonna be talking about spoilers here.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, we go all spoilers in with
spoilers. Okay.
If you haven't
3 seconds to go into show notes and just go to the next part of the program if you don't want to hear about this. So we have learned that Vision has a twin brother. Ooh, that's gonna be brought into the mix. We have what else? We have Monica Rambeau. We didn't know what actually happened to Monica Rambeau, so she wasn't in the 8th episode at all. So that was a thing to tie in. And we were probably looking to see like a big fight, big battle. And so what do you think about all those? Did I miss something?
Yeah, well, we had Kat Dennings, Darcy.
Darcy,
yep.
Yeah.
And we had Jimmy Woo and Hayward, right?
Yeah.
So we had a lot of stuff, like a lot of plates spinning that they had to figure out how to get off the spinning tops. And some of them, I feel like they didn't really do a super job of it when it came to it. So,
for example,
primarily Jimmy Woo, Hayward, and Darcy were.
Yeah, I think they were just very, very kind of like sidelined in this episode. I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a suspicion based on how Darcy ends. So we see Darcy for not only the briefest second in the episode where she smashes her car into the side of Hayward. And you never actually see them both on the screen at the same time. You get a shot of him, and then the camera pans to her, and she's inside the car, and she says, "Have fun in jail." I think that's her only line. And then later on,
she's not even there during the ending, right? Like she's not even there.
Exactly. So later on,
she's left to do something else. So it's just like, whoo. Okay.
Jimmy says, "Where's Darcy?" And Monica replies something to the effect of, "She hates debriefs." And that's it. We just never see her again. So
Did she say something controversial, and they just got rid of her before that?
No.
Okay.
So what I think has maybe happened here is that a lot of this was filmed pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, a lot of her sequences, and then COVID happened and it forced them to have to go back and readjust and tweak a few things, and they weren't able to get her back for whatever scenes that she maybe needed to shoot to wrap up their original script for her, so that they just essentially wrote her out of it with a very brief scene. I wouldn't be surprised if there was someone was able to identify that her crashing into Hayward was totally digital effects, and that that scene was totally effective. And you just get her to record a line and send it over. It's very easy to do, can be done from home, and they just recorded in. As a matter of fact, at the end of this episode, there is when Monica and Wanda are talking, and Monica says, it's kind of like, where are you going to go? Or it's just, and she says, I don't really understand what this power is. And then she says, but I will. And then she says another line. I seen something that if you look close enough, the "but I will" line is digital effects. That sequence is cut, and then they comp in a digital Wanda, and it's just so convincing. And they had her re-record her line, and she added another part in, and she then they very quickly they just motion it back into the other line, so you never see it. It's totally smooth.
I've not noticed that. Yeah.
If you have to really be looking for it, you can tell that there is.
How many times you've seen this?
No,
50
I seen it pointed out somewhere else. I didn't pick it up on my own.
Say you've seen it.
So I wouldn't be surprised anyway to get back to it that Darcy was in fact just that. Her finishing sequence was that when they had her and they filmed her with Vision in the truck that time, and they wrapped that day, they were never able to get her back to do any more. So they rechanged the script. They have Vision fly out of the truck and they leave her behind. And then they just digitally comp an ending in for her and they write her out of the script. Because ultimately, she never had much to do throughout the series anyway, right? She kind of served her purpose very early on. So I have a funny feeling that some of the ending of this series was rewrites that had to happen to accommodate. And I feel that is the case with Hayward and Jimmy Woo as well, that their endings are just so pointless. And it was some of the weakest stuff throughout the series. We talked about that before, that what was kind of happening outside the Hex very often was way less interesting. And it got less interesting as time went on. We were kind of building who is this sort of secret person that Monica's talking to, and then we get who it is, and we're like, right? Okay, and then it never really amounts to anything. I think it would have been much stronger had Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy made it to episode 6 and they were just gone. I don't even feel like we needed to see Monica become Photon, because she doesn't do anything as Photon or Spectrum or whatever she is.
That was a kind of a way to introduce a new superhero, to tie her into the universe, and to do it not in the movie but just somewhere else. So people, if they see it in the movie, they go back and watch that TV show. But I feel like just gonna kind of pause you for a second.
Sure.
I kind of like that you saying things that I'm thinking, and this is coming from a big fan. So we're on the same page. I think those three kind of timelines, I completely even forgot about them. For me, more important stuff is happening in the Hex than outside the Hex.
Yeah, right. So I may be a super fan, Rado, but I'm not above criticizing things. Okay.
I know you love criticizing things, so that's a different story,
So yeah, I would have preferred had they, as much as I enjoyed watching them, I really enjoyed Jimmy Woo. I love Monica. I think I forget that actress's name, but she's doing a fantastic job, and I can't wait to see her in more stuff. And Kat Dennings is Kat Dennings. Like she's Darcy before. She's the same Darcy now, and it's whatever, cool. And I thought the show provided a fun way to bring her and Jimmy Woo back in without needing to have a full spin-off series or something silly like that. It's no, they can come in and they can have a role to play in here, but I felt like at some point they should have been all right, the line is drawn. What are we doing with these characters now? Let's just move them on to halfway through the season. We can pick up with them somewhere else. They can come back in Loki. I mean, Darcy and Loki have some connection before from the Thor movies, right? So it makes sense if she had some part to play there in one episode. Who knows? My other big complaint was that I would have really liked the show to have avoided this sort of big spectacle in the air fight that happens about midway through the episode.
Which one? Because there are two fights. There are two big fights, right?
Yeah, I think both. I mean, I think what happens between Wanda and Agatha is perfectly fine. I love the little throwback to the Wizard of Oz with the boots as she smashed the car through the window. Yeah, that little stuff I think is where this show is working, is where it was at its strongest, is when it can have these little moments like that. And they don't have too big of an explosive fight at that sequence, and I feel like the sequence that they have later on in the sky is where it starts to pick up again, actually. But the two visions, particularly as they fight, is so meaningless because we've just got introduced to this vision. and we know that the other Vision is en route because we've seen him leave in the last episode. So you kind of know it's going to happen, and we already know Vision's powers. We already know what he can do from the movies that he's been in. So did I need to see two Visions fight in the sky and shoot the laser beams out of their heads at each other and do the phasing and throwing them into caravans and stuff like that? No, I don't think that I did. I don't think that it was very useful to any of the plot, and I think it used up more time than was necessary, because ultimately what was fantastic was the sequence of them in the library where they communicate with each other. And Vision is like, well, how can I beat myself? He's like, well, like, I can talk to him as an intelligent android because that's what I am and that's what he is. So it makes perfect sense if we just have a talk. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of like, how would you go about fighting your own self? You kind of got to know, like, your strengths and weaknesses and, like,
kicking the nuts, you know, that's, you what know.
And yeah, and they have this fight, and it's like, well, it's kind of pointless because, like, they're equally matched across the board. So the way that he ends up dealing with it is so much more interesting, and I would have much preferred if they just had a longer conversation between the two of them, where instead of them, like, fighting in the sky, they just had a much more philosophical debate about their existence and about who they are and what it means to them, and you know, like, what their previous life was or what it could be, and so on and so forth. Like, that would have been far more interesting, and the way they do it with the ship of Theses was really, really great. And them fighting in the sky was not. It was just sort of like, yep, it's Vision, he's fighting in the sky. The budget of the show does not hold up to the budget of the big movies. It kind of looks fine, but you can see the edges showing a little bit here, where it's like, yeah, we could have done with, like, another pass over this year at the, you know, the animation studio to get this looking really, really good, but we don't have time, we don't have budget. So I would have liked to have seen a little less of that in the middle of the episode, because I felt like it used up precious time where we explore the characters further.
Yeah, I think just to add something to here, I understand why the fight scenes are there. I think this is what, like, just to give fans this and give fans that, so fans want to see, you know, wavy hands and, you know, making this, making that, and it's just like, okay, fantastic, great, but it's just like, I agree with you again, Connor. No, this was like smashy bangy Marvel stuff that, you know, I can live without. I can definitely watch it, you know, in different TV show, or like that one that's coming, or in the film. But here, you know, we had such a good episode with emotional stuff, and this, it's just like another person saying, enough with the emotional stuff, let's do some smashy bangy stuff. And then when midway through the episode, towards the end, you know, Wanda needs to make a big decision to whether she's gonna quit that world or not, and just kind of it doesn't land anymore, because you are obviously just thinking about, like, whoa, there was the big fight in the sky and whatever. She's like, now she's doing something to her family, and it's like, okay, doesn't have that arc that it was earned in episode 8 until the episode 8. But I don't know. That's how I kind of felt it.
Yeah, this definitely, that sequence feels like where you get the committee that makes decisions, that come in and say, like, yeah, we screen tested this and we think that audiences would really like if there was like a cool fight scene that happened here between the two Visions, you know. And it's like, you know, like, it's like made by committee, you know, instead of you know, I think that's a harder thing for you to fight when it comes to making a big Avengers movie. I can imagine how much debate probably happened to get Infinity War to end in the way that Infinity War does. Like, you can imagine that probably wasn't an easy fight. That probably wasn't just like one of the screenwriters was like, this is what we want to do, and they all went, sounds good, we'll love it, sounds great. I would imagine that was you want to kill half of the superheroes and half of the universe in a Disney Marvel movie? Like, one of our biggest things. Let's talk about this further, right? And it's probably a hard-fought battle that they ended up winning. And I feel like this is the sort of situation where this shouldn't have had to be a battle because of the nature of this show. This should have been the moment where the show has so far been so creative in so many ways that it felt like they could have said, we don't need this. Like, this isn't why you said fans want this. I don't believe that we do. Because I feel like most people are like, oh, it didn't stick the landing. And I'm like, yeah, and this is one of the reasons why, because we built, over a course of a few episodes and a few parts in movies before, we built an understanding of who Wanda and Vision were. We've now got a really great sense, thanks to episode 8, of who Wanda is and why she's doing what she's doing. And we want to see that explored. We want to see that pan out. And I think we did get there. It's just that they took this detour through the middle of it to do this other part that is probably serving up something else in the MCU, because of course we see White Vision leaving. We never see what happens to him. So he's coming back.
What happens to him, exactly.
He's coming back. Same with Agatha. Agatha doesn't die, so she's coming back some point in time. All for it, by the way. Catherine Hahn, incredible. So all for, I'm glad they didn't kill Agatha, actually, because I'm like, I want to see more of her in this universe at some point. So anyway, all of it kind of accumulates towards the end, where we end up having another fight in the sky, and this one is a little bit more clever because we see Wanda go through a series of emotions. Right before it, we see her go to give up the world that she's created. And then she sees her children and Vision being destroyed in front of her, and the selfishness sets back in, and she says, no, like, I'm not going to do that. I want to, like, these are my family. I want to keep them. And you really buy into her turmoil. And then we get into the sky, and it feels like she comes over that hurdle and she says, I know what must be done. So, You see her going into the sky, and Agatha has kind of promised her, well, look, I can let you keep what you want. And you're kind of in that moment where you're like, right, so Wanda seemingly, I don't trust it, but it seems like maybe she's saying that she wants to stay in this world and that this is her family and this is what she's willing to do, give up her powers. But you're not quite buying it. And then we see what she does, and she pulls one over on Agatha. It's really clever, a nice throwback to the previous episode. And then we get that sequence rolling out after she kind of beats Agatha. We get the badass costume coming in. Shout out to that costume, really cool.
Very cool, very nice.
Very cool. And then we get the sequence as it finishes where she has come to terms with, I have to give up my family. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. It's not the right thing, at least in this case, for me to do, because they're not quote unquote real, despite how real they may feel to her. Like, they're not real. And that final sequence is incredibly emotional, I thought, anyway. I don't know about you, but
it didn't work for me because of all that stuff that was happening around it. I think it was kind of they tried to pull it back from the previous episode, but it didn't work for me that much. I think it was just lost in the noise for me.
I agree.
It doesn't mean that it was not a bad scene. It was a good scene, but an overall picture of that episode, it didn't work.
I agree. I do think that the path that they took to getting there was a little bit more distracting because of like the fights in the air and stuff like that we didn't need to see. Because then, like, not only do we have the fights in the air, but then we get Photon using her powers very briefly. We get Hayward trying to murder children very briefly. We get Darcy crashing into him, and it's like, well, I don't care what Darcy's doing. I don't care. Hayward has proved to be a pointless villain. Photon isn't really doing anything cool, really. She's just having this one short sequence where she sort of stops these bullets or whatever. We haven't yet really defined what her powers are either. We had the sort of the wrap up of Quicksilver as well.
Yeah, that was interesting. I wanted to kind of ask you about that because it turns out that Evan Peters is not playing Pietro from the MCU or from the Fox universe.
Mm-hmm.
He's just playing a guy who is an actor or something, and he's just kind of like, that was so strange for me. Like they kind of took an actor that is from a film that everyone knows that he plays that role, but he's there like by an accident, and he looks, I don't know. It was just like fun with. Let's have fun with fans about this, and that's it. Let's no, I don't buy it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
It feels like a moment where the joke gets too meta, that even the people who would have been in on the joke are no longer getting the joke, because we're like, is this a joke or is it not a joke? Or, you know, like, yeah, because it's Evan Peters and it's from the Fox universe. It's like, oh, he's playing Quicksilver. Is it that Quicksilver? Is it another Quicksilver? Is it someone's cast as Quicksilver? Is he playing a trick on her as Quicksilver? It's like, it's none of these things at all. They just put him there as a wink to the fans who know that he played the same character in another version, but it's not him this time. And it's just like, it was a bit, they went maybe a little bit too far, and you know, like they kind of set something up just to like tease people, but it turned out that it wasn't even a tease either.
That was trolling. That was proper trolling, right?
It was a troll, yeah. So I don't know if that necessarily paid off. Is it done? Is it finished? Or are we going to see more of that? Perhaps. I feel like they are not afraid to go back and retcon some things back into how they do things at this point. They're not afraid to take a step back and say, well, we did this and it didn't really work out, or maybe it didn't get explained enough, and maybe we can dial it in a little bit more. Wanda is a prime example of this with the Stark bomb. You know, it was like, did she, you know, they essentially retconned it to say that, well, no, it wasn't just by luck that the bomb didn't go off. It would appear that Wanda had some sort of ability to stop that bomb prior to it going off, like a probability hex, as Agatha said. Anyway,
if we're talking about retconning, just wanted to ask you something as well, because you know, one of the biggest kind of things you can have in a universe is like when you have your character that you admire, you love, it's being killed off. You know, again, spoilers for another movies, but we know that at least 2 big characters from the universe have been killed off in Endgame. 3 when you count Vision, and then suddenly you have Vision back. Obviously, at the beginning of the show when we started watching it, my thoughts were like, okay, is this happening before the Endgame or is it after? But it's some sort of a simulation. That's why we had all those theories and everything, kind of like, just like, what's going on. Now we knew that like Vision came out of Wanda. It was her version of him. Mm-hmm. So that's why he didn't remember some of those things. He didn't have all the knowledge. But then there is White Vision that has all the information, because the Wanda's vision has unlocked it for him. So he technically is Vision. So essentially, we cared about him dying, and Wanda cared about him dying, and now he's not dead. I know technically he's white, but he can change his color anytime. He's made from like the material. He can do that, I assume. And isn't that harmful to the whole story, the whole kind of narrative arc? When you, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have not Tony Stark, but we're gonna have Iron Man coming back as a different actor will play like the legacy of Iron Man. This is gonna happen 100%.
Let me ask you this then: did you feel the same way, or do you feel the same way about Gamora from Infinity War to Endgame?
I mean, again, Gamora is not that big of a character when you compare it to
Vision. No, Gamora had basically had 2 of her own movies at this point. Like,
not her own movie, so there was no movie. I mean, maybe if you put it on the scale, they would kind of, you know, measure almost equally. For me, Vision was a bigger character. He was there from a very, like, as Paul Bettany playing Jarvis. He was there from a very beginning of the MCU. And, you know, you asked me like what my girlfriend thinks about it, and then I messaged you. My girlfriend started rewatching MCU movies because when we finished watching WandaVision, she was like, I don't see all the connections. I see it like this is another interesting discussion. Like, she does not kind of remember that character from Thor. She's just watching Thor and it's like, oh, she's in Thor, you know, so this is kind of important when you have this whole history of people. So I don't know if it's harmful. Yes. You're gonna bring everyone back now. You're gonna just kill them off and bring everyone back. This is a big soap opera. I said that before, and I just have those movies. Those stories are not brave enough for me to care. Like if Wolverine is gonna be back, this is gonna be the end.
So someone asked James Gunn about, are you gonna find a way to bring Yondu back into it? And he's like, no, like death has to mean something. It has to mean something, otherwise what's the point in any of this? And I do worry about that going forward with the MCU. It's like, how often are we going to figure out a way to bring someone back and all of a sudden they're just back? Gamora is an example of it. But what they've done with Gamora, and I think what they're going to do with Vision, and I believe in both of these actors enough in that they are the same character coming back, but they are not the same person. They are like the same person coming back, but they're not the same character.
Oh, it's a little bit like Superman coming back in Justice League, right? So it's the same character, but it's not like he's changed and whatever. Like, fuck you.
And I just believe that the Justice League script is not good enough, and neither is Thingy at actually portraying it. But like I could see in Thor: Love and Thunder or Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, like we find Gamora again, but this Gamora does not fall in love with Quill. She's not just the same Gamora again. She's not just in love with Quill again the same way. Maybe that the story is him trying to get her to fall in love, and it just doesn't work. Because this Gamora is not the same Gamora. She's now missing all of the point of her life that led her to falling in love with Quill. She never gets to experience that because she's being kind of pulled out of her own timeline. And the same with this Vision. This Vision he is being told all of this stuff by the Wanda's Vision, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to feel the same about her. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's like, oh, I get it. I was in love with Wanda, so I should be in love with her again. And I think Paul Bettany, in this show, he is absolutely incredible in so many sequences. And I really, really look forward to seeing him now coming back as a different version of Vision and having to deal with being having less humanity maybe than he did before. Because one of the things that made Vision so endearing was how much humanity he has. And it's highlighted in that closing sequence of him, like, shedding a tear as he say, and he says I have to know, like, what am I? Like, he's still, even though he's born of Wanda this time, he has this characteristic of total humanity within him. And it makes him such a lovable character because he's so incredibly powerful, and yet he doesn't almost ever want to use any of that power. He almost wants to keep it shielded in a way all the time because it's the humanity that he's so interested in. So I'd love to see now, how do we get Paul Bettany to come back and play this character devoid of that? Do we ever get to see him grow back into that? Or does he always struggle with it? Is it just now never a part of him because he never knew love the way that he did with Wanda? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for stuff like that here. I understand what you're saying. Death has to mean something, and I'm scared as well that they do just start bringing back people because it's like, we can find a way to use multiple universes and multiple timelines to just bring people back, and they're here. Like, do we bring back Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow? Why not? We can figure out, she was trapped in the Soul Stone, and you can actually bring them back. Like, there's all sorts of silly plot lines they can come up with. I don't think that they're going to go that way. I think Kevin Feige ultimately feels the same in that, these decisions have to mean something that they're making. And the characters have to show growth. And I think that the MCU in particular has moved from strength to strength in its recent years at showing character growth. The big jump here is when you go from Thor 1 and Thor 2 to then Ragnarok, and then you see him in Infinity War, because we rewatched Infinity War recently, and you have that sequence where he's talking to Rocket on the ship, and it's so like Chris Hemsworth is delivering such a good performance, and he's like, Thanos is just another in a long line of bastards, he will feel my wrath. And it's like, Rocket's saying to him, like, oh, he's like, you got like a dad. He's like killed family. He's like, oh, sister tried to kill me or destroy my hammer. Brother died. Mom died. Best friend dead. Like, and like he's so like he just lists off all of these things that we've seen over all of these movies that have broken him down and rebuilt him as a better character that we care more about, and that still continues then into Endgame. And how does that move then into Love and Thunder? So I do think that ultimately, this has been such a long tangent, but ultimately, I think that's...
Yeah, what's the point, Connor? What is the point?
The point is that I still think the MCU are doing a really good job here at driving with their characters, as opposed to the stuff that's surrounding them. And I mentioned to you earlier on that I was... initially, I was kind of like, yeah, Falcon Winter Soldier looks really cool. And as I've started to see a few more of the little 1 minute teasers that they've been putting out on the lead up to it launching this week, I have got more and more excited because it looks like we're actually getting to see a lot more depth of Bucky and Sam. It's about them. It's about their partnership and their friendship.
Really, I thought it's going to be something else, but hey.
No, but I thought there's a potential that this movie turns out, or this series turns out to be, they just go do silly things. And most of it is just them doing fun, and it's class, and look at all the cool fight scenes, and they're making jokes, and it's yeah, it's cool. They don't like each other, but they're friends. But the stuff we've actually been seeing is showing a lot more depth to it already. And I'm like, okay, this could be really cool, and I'm very, very excited to see where this goes now. So I think ultimately, trending forward, that what I'm saying is, to loop it all back around, Rado, is that we're finally
back to the interview.
We're going to get diversity at the Oscars superhero movie for Best Picture. It's going to happen. Don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Don't know what it is. But we're getting closer to them. They deserve their reckoning. They need to stop putting them in. It should have been The Dark Knight, but we need to stop putting them in all the technical categories. All right, we need to stop. Oh, best cinematographer, cool. Yeah. Best production, best sound design, cool. All of that, fantastic. We need to put it in there in Best Picture. It needs to happen.
Once they deserve it, and it's definitely going to be Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I wanted to ask you actually. So overall, what do you think about WandaVision? But I'm afraid you're going to be rambling about 10 minutes again, and I'll switch off. So in 2 sentences. What was your expectation? What did you get? And if you had to rate it, what would you give it?
I would say it met my expectation exactly. I mentioned this on one of our previous episodes. I wanted a series where we were being given mysteries and twists and turns and little hints and clues here, and led down an alley one way, it turns out it's a dead end, and I wanted stuff like that. I wanted to be going and reading theories and stuff like that, and I think that they delivered that so well. They had a lot of fun with it and a lot of creativity with it. Out of 10, I would probably give it a solid 8.
Okay, so almost 4 stars, right? So 4 stars, so just to answer my own question,
yes.
In terms of this TV show, I did not have that high of expectations. Actually, I was kind of afraid this is going to be one of those rubbish Marvel shows, or one of the weakest kind of things. But then the beginning was so strong for me. I was sold from the moment it started. I really enjoyed probably half of this. Half of that show kind of dipped down for me for many reasons we already said. So I really like the building towards the end, but the ending wasn't there. Overall, I think it's a very, very good attempt on something different in this universe.
Yeah.
And I think mainly for that, I would also give it 4 stars.
Yeah,
for the attempt to do something, bring something else, despite this kind of being smashy grabby, whatever the films can be from the universe. This tried to be a little bit different. This is WandaVision, available on Disney Plus in its entirety, 9 episodes.
Yeah.
And towards the end, like last 4 episodes, if you've not watched them, or there are scenes at the very fucking end of this credits. Last episode has a scene at the very, very fucking end.
Yeah.
Which was like super annoying because I had to listen to one podcast to tell me about it.
Yeah.
But just to add to this, very quickly, Assembled. So we have Marvel Studios Assembled on Disney Plus that is like released a week after the WandaVision finished, and this is the documentary making of WandaVision. I watched it and I was just like, okay, interesting stuff. I like to see behind the scenes, especially when they were shooting the very first episodes, and see how the production was kind of rolling through. But a lot of it was just like, hey, we're gonna explain you what actually happened in there, just in case you didn't kind of get it.
Yep.
And this was like, this is a mixture of like interesting documentary with like some stuff explaining people what this show was about. So not entirely essential viewing, like the gallery, like the Mandalorian gallery was
Yes.
like essential viewing. This is not really essential viewing. I think the beginning, when they show the studio, how the setup was, how they kind of tried to make up like what color a Vision should be to look good in
Make
black
him
and
blue.
white. That was super great. But
Yeah.
a lot of the dialogue, the interviews were just like, my God, pointless.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It was a lot of like the interviews were a lot of surface level stuff. Like, I'm super happy to be in this role.
Yeah, but it was
you
like
know?
also explaining, so we see that Wanda is actually
Yeah.
doesn't know what she's doing. Is she there or not? Like, okay, I've seen the show. You don't have to explain this to me. So that was like kind of unnecessary.
That's fair. I think.
Yeah,
that's
so
fair
Marvel
enough.
Studios Assembled and WandaVision, everything available on Disney Plus. So can we close this discussion for now?
I think
for
we will
reviews?
finally put an end to what has felt like a lifetime of
Yeah.
us talking. We could do like we could split the parts where we talk about WandaVision off and put it out as a single.
That's what I'm gonna do.
podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. That's gonna be like 5 hours, probably.
Hmm.
So this is it for the reviews today. But before we go, we have pick of the week, and I've noticed, Connor, that we have not talked about Netflix today. Okay, you know, like we've reviewed films from Disney, from Amazon, but we've not reviewed anything from Netflix. So I will put my pick of the week as something we've watched, read, listened to recently. So I've not kind of read much or listened to other podcasts. I'm not gonna advertise other podcast here, but I've been watching. After I finished Schitt's Creek, I've been watching Superstore on Netflix, and this is a TV show that probably not many people heard about, and I've never heard about until it actually landed on Netflix. So this is a comedy show created by Justin Spitzer. He was a co-producer of The American Office. He also wrote some of the episodes of American Office. And at the beginning of there's 6 episodes right now. 5 of them are available on Netflix. At the beginning, it feels a little bit like, it's just like a different version of The Office, and you can actually even feel like this person is that, this person is that, this person. But it kind of grew on me, and by series 5, I'm completely invested in this. I love those characters. I love the stupid setup they have, because these are all people who work in a big superstore like American Walmart or something like that.
Sure.
And if any of you listening out there have worked a week in retail, you will get this TV show. You will be laughing your ass out. And so many of those situations that they have there, they are not made up. They are actually from the real life. And that's me, who I worked a few years in retail before. So that's my pick of the week, Superstore, available on Netflix. What about you? What's your pick of the week? What do you
Mine's
want to
is,
recommend me?
Something a little bit different this time. I texted you this earlier. You're not familiar with Casey Neistat.
No, never heard about him.
I think this is another discussion we could have separately about YouTube as a viable kind of contender for like storytelling and media, because it isn't counted towards it isn't counted in there with the likes of Netflix and so on and so forth, because it is fundamentally something different. But yet, when I look at what I watch on a weekly basis, I would say 70% of my viewing time in front of a screen is on YouTube of some description. Like, I mean, it is an overwhelming amount of what I consume weekly is on Netflix. On my TV. I mean, on my big TV I watch, or not Netflix, sorry, YouTube. Anyway, Casey Neistat was or is a vlogger or a storyteller or a filmmaker on YouTube. He has had a HBO show before. One of the most prolific vloggers, kind of really set the standard for storytelling on YouTube. And he was the person who sort of started the vlog as we've come to know it. And he did he lived in New York City, and a lot of it was just like him on his day-to-day, but he was so good at editing. He's an absolute master of editing and an absolute master of storytelling. He can take a very mundane day and turn it into something very interesting in a short 10 to 15 minute video, just because he's a masterful storyteller. And his brother, Van Neistat, who was the person who did his HBO show with him back in the day, it was called the NEISTAT Brothers. His brother is very odd. We haven't really seen much of him before in terms of being on camera or anything like that there. Casey did a video a few days ago saying, you know, basically being like, my brother Van is starting a YouTube channel. And he was like, Van doesn't use social media. He hasn't been poisoned by social media. And he's also what I feel is one of the best YouTubers because he doesn't watch YouTube. He doesn't watch any of this stuff. He's not interested in it. He doesn't care. He's not part of it. And because of that, it makes him so much better than everyone else on there, because everyone else seen what Casey did and is trying to do what Casey did. Like, YouTube is just full of people trying to be Casey Neistat. And his brother then, Van, put up a video this week. It's only his third or fourth video on the channel. It's called Fantasy Fixing as part of his channel, and
I will link it in the show notes if anyone wants to watch it after we finish.
It's very short, 10 minutes. The way that he films, it's almost like he's shooting on a actual like film stock, so like beautiful grain over it. He's telling this story about an art installation, and he's telling it almost in the third person, an art installation that they built in New York City, and then it got moved to Germany, to Berlin, as an actual, in a museum, and they needed someone to maintain it, so they brought Van with it to maintain it. And while he was there, he just was like fixing things, and he built a cabinet full of tools. And people would start coming into the museum, and they would see the cabinet of tools, and they would bring him their own broken stuff, and he would fix it for them. And the whole thing is that he is just someone who loves fixing things. He's like, I don't get computers, I don't do computers, but fixing things. And it's just something about it is so simplistic and so joyful, and the way it's filmed is absolutely remarkable. It reminds me so much of a Wes Anderson in so many ways, but without the sort of style, if that makes sense. Like, it's not like the colors of Wes Anderson, but it's almost that sort of, like, there's frames missing and it's slightly stop motion-y or something like that. It's so hard to explain, but just trust me, watch it. It's 10 minutes, not a lot of time, but it's so gripping and fascinating, and I can't wait to see what else this guy puts on his channel, because I feel like he could do 10 videos that are absolutely incredible and be like, no, it's not for me, and that's it. We'll never see any more of his stuff again. It's fascinating.
Sounds interesting. I'll put it in the show notes, and I will promise I will watch it. So these were our picks of the week, or pick of the week, for the Blockbusters show. And after 2 hours of us talking here without a water break, without a bathroom break, I think it's time to end episode 36. And thank you very much for listening. We are on all the social medias. Is listed earlier. You can find all the links in our show notes, and give us a thumbs up, give us a rating. We will really, really appreciate it. Next week, or next time when we're gonna be here, we're definitely gonna be talking about a new show on Disney Plus, right, Connor?
Yeah, we will. I'm gonna talk to you something when we go off air, but I'm gonna finish with our goodbyes first of all, and I want to read a tweet that I just read. Just to finish the show with.
Go for it.
I got to read it totally out of context. Okay, cool. Right, there's two parts of it, all right? First one. Now that he has received a historical Oscar nomination in a leading role, I'm going to need everyone to learn to pronounce it correctly. Stephen Yun rhymes with fun, not Yun, not Ewan, not whatever mush you're saying. So I'm absolutely putting my hands up. I said Stephen Young earlier on, like pronouncing the E in it instead of just like Yun. And then the second part of it, and while we're on the topic, have you learned how to say Bong Joon Ho yet? Don't try to front like you've never said the word bong and the month of June. That's easy. And then Ho. Even Santa says it. Not perfect, but better than the guy who directed Parasite. I'll leave you with that, all right? Diversity, it means you learn shit like this. You're less dumb, ignorant white person like I am, all right? You know, that's what it's all about. See you next week.
Bye.
Next time.
And like that, he's gone.
Maybe your dad, maybe your father, but he ain't your daddy.
Kurt Russell?
No, not Kurt Russell. Oh, it's killing me. I'm gonna kick myself for not knowing it like right away. But yeah, he's so. Where can I see it? You look like Mary Poppins. Is he cool? Yeah, he's cool. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Why can't I remember? It's killing me. Oh my god. All right, where's the stupid cast button on here? For the love of mercy. Right, IMDb, where are you? There's nothing like slower whenever you're trying to look something up on a show. Like all of a sudden finding information is impossible. Why he's not even Yondu. Jesus Christ. Michael Rooker is Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. He's in Volume 1, but he's in Volume 2. And do you remember?
I don't like that movie, so.
Oh, okay, fuck you. But you remember at the end of Volume 2, he dies. Right?
Who?
Yondu. Michael
Who's
Rooker's
Yondu?
character. The blue guy with the mohawk. Like the mohawk and the whistle. He whistles for his arrow, right?
Of course.
Very emotional scene at the end of it because they spent so much time building him up in that movie and then they kill him at the end of that movie.